is Professor Sarath Amunugama, sir. A leading Sri Lankan academic. I don't know anybody else is leading him. He is maybe the most senior today in the university system in Sri Lanka. He's professor of French. So we heard a professor trained in Japan a while ago. Now we are going to hear a professor trained in France. So East and West difference also you might probably gather. Founding Vice Chancellor of the University of Visual and Performing Arts of Colombo. He is currently the Vice Chancellor of University of Kelaniya. I think this biography is a little old, so you are former Vice Chancellor. Professor Amunugama received his secondary education at Kingswood College, Kandy, and entered the University of Ceylon before entering the University of Sorbonne, Paris, specializing in modern languages, where he gained in licentiate, masters, and PhD. During his long teaching career, he held several distinguished positions such as Dean, Faculty of Humanities, University of Kelaniya, before being appointed as the first Vice Chancellor of the newly established University of Visual and Performing Arts on 1st July 2005. In 2008, he was appointed the Vice Chancellor of University of Kelaniya. I knew Professor Amunugama when we formed a former French Alumni Association in Sri Lanka. He was one of the leading members there. I was privileged to be educated in France, so he was too. So we had this kind of club that we wanted to form, and we had this opportunity of trying to practice our broken French there a bit. So Professor Amunugama was a pillar of support there. Professor Amunugama, floor is yours. Let's listen to Language and Communication for National Development.
Thank you very much, Sir Chair of the panel. Very good afternoon to all of you. The Chair, the members of the panel or the fellow speakers of this plenary session, dear participants, and ladies and gentlemen. My speech is not the conclusion of research or anything as such, but it is an informative speech which can be considered as an opening, or let's say a prelude to the session that you are going to listen to tomorrow under the language, communication and development. So don't expect too many conclusions from my speech, but I believe we will be able to gather some useful information to continue to think of the language, communication and development. The Epictetus, who was a Greek philosopher, was a cook during the period when he was still a slave. One day his master asked him to prepare the best dish. The dish he prepared happened to be a dish of tongue. Another day, the master ordered him to cook the worst dish. What he cooked and brought to the master was again a dish of tongue. Indeed, our language can bless or curse. It can condemn or forgive, can encourage or kill. Our reputation is largely made through the use of our language. Using the language, dictators have managed to lead the whole people into misfortune, into misery, while men filled with wisdom from above were peacemakers and a blessing to the humanity. The proposed theme or the sub-theme of this session being language and communication for development. And as I said, since my speech is a kind of an opening remarks of the session that is going to be held tomorrow, on the professionalism for national development in the domain of management, social sciences and humanities. I thought I should speak on this particular title itself, especially from my point of view as a linguist. Then it will be followed by my attempts to share some of my thoughts among you and coming under the same title. Look at the three substantives. I'm sorry, I'm not using the modern technology for this. Look at the three substantives or the nouns, as we say in this title: language, communication, development. These are three words very commonly used by us in multiple situations. And nobody here present need to refer to a dictionary to understand what each of these words means. But this liberty of interpretation of these individual words is restricted when they are placed together within a grammatical relativity to give a contextual meaning which reflects the intention of the author or the intention of the person who proposed this theme in this conference. Let us first focus on the first noun, which is the language. The term language consists of mainly two significance or two meanings. One refers to its generic meaning, another refers to its specific meanings, which are several. According to the generic meaning, language is a tool used for communication in general. It applies not only to the human beings or the world of human beings, but also to the world of animals, to the domain of signals, and also to the domain of icons, for example. In these circumstances, let us see how the dictionaries define this term, the language. I refer to several dictionaries. One of the definition is any system of formalized symbols, signs, sounds, gestures, or the like used, or conceived as a means of communication, means of communicating thought, emotions, etc. It is also defined as the means of communication used by animals. We are talking of the language of the bees, for example. Communication of meaning in any way and medium that is expressive, significant, etc. Now those have been some of the definition of the word language. And those definitions can be identified as referring to the word language in its generic meaning. When the same word is used in specific meaning, it is described as a body of words and the system of their use common to a people who are of the same community or nation in the same geographical area or in the same cultural traditions. Another definition: communication by voice in the distinctly human manner, using arbitrary sounds in conventional ways with conventional meanings. Any set of system of such symbols as used in a more or less uniformed fashion by a number of people who are thus enabled to communicate intelligibly with one another. Examples for this second category of definition are the languages that we speak: Sinhala, Tamil, English, French, German, etc. The glaring evidence of importance in understanding distinctly these two meanings of the word language is that in many languages there are two distinct words or terms, each referring to one of the two concepts we mentioned above. Thus, the understanding the different meanings or the different significances of the word become less ambiguous, or in linguistic terms become less arbitrary. But both in Sinhala, English, I was told even in Tamil, there are only a single word which gives both meanings, the generic as well as the specific meaning, which renders the word polysemic word, or in other words, a word which has many meanings. So in situation of communication, using the medium of Sinhala, Tamil or English, the speaker or the interlocutor should take into account the context or the environment of the utterance or the expression in order to interpret the meaning of the word language as intended by the author. It is known that the mother tongue of an individual, along with his or her life experience, fashion the mind of that particular individual. Matthew Stewart, let me quote, "The influence of language in the formation of the infant mind and the development of intellectual capacity is very great. We have only to consider spontaneous effort of the faculties made by every child before he begins to speak, but learns in some degree to understand the import of oral signs, and while he acquires the method for using them according to analogy of his native tongue, to see how much the exercise of his intellectual powers from the first dawning of reasoning is influenced and fashioned by the nature of this logical process on which they are first employed." End of quote. Let us now take the term the communication, which is again defined as the imparting of exchanging of information by speaking, writing, or using some other medium. It is also defined as means sending or receiving information, such as telephone lines, the computers, and so forth. And also means of traveling. When you say communication, it refers also to traveling or transporting goods or persons and so forth, but that is out of our context. Suppose if we consider the communication is simply the act of transferring information or ideas or feelings, etc., from one place to another, or from one person to another. I said simply the act of transferring. But when you consider the purpose of communication, it is not as simple as that. When the act of communication happens, consciously or unconsciously, whether you like it or not, whether you want or not, there are a number of other factors which get involved in this act of communication. Those are the factors which create issues in the act of communication. Depending on how you manage these factors, your communication could be effective, or otherwise it would not be a successful communication. Some of those issues are pertaining to the following questions. What do you want to communicate? In the sense, what is the message you want to transfer? How do you communicate this message? In other words, what means are you using to communicate, and in which form the communication is done? Is it verbal? Is it non-verbal, or both? Same way, what are your physical means of communication? What channel you use to communicate, etc. I earlier said that the significance or the understanding of an utterance you receive in an unconstrained environment is also linked or influenced by your own personal experience. That is very important. And in communication, this factor is not very much taken into consideration, your personal experience. Now, for example, when I want to relate a story or a series of events, for example, I relate this to you. This morning, when I woke up, it was already daylight. I went to the window of my room. I opened it. And what did I see? On the branch of the tree which is in front of my house, there was a bird perched and eating something. Now, I said a series of events. And in your mind, you are imagining a story, the images which pass together. But what kind of tree was it? What was the tree? What was the bird you imagined? What was the bird you saw in your mind? Perhaps I was referring to a jack tree, a kosgak, jack tree. But in your image, in your understanding, in your mind, you had a mango tree. And the bird I was referring to was perhaps a parrot. But the bird in your mind would have been a crow, because that had been what you had already experienced in your life. So my world of symbols would have been different from your world of symbols, because they are very much linked with our personal experience. Having given thus an account of the complexity of language and communication as different, at the same time complementary entities, let us see how they emerge as factors of development. How do we define the concept of development? It is the act of growth, a significant consequence, expansion, elaboration, evolution, maturation, etc. Those are the synonyms of development. But when an operatory definition is to be fixed or needed, we shall define development as what follows. The systematic use of scientific and technical knowledge to meet specific objectives or requirements. An extension of the theoretical or practical aspects of a concept, design, discovery, or innovation. However, within the framework of our discussion in this panel, and also to facilitate our arguments, it is more convenient to consider the concept of development as a process of economic and social transfer that is based on complex cultural and environmental factors and their interaction. Now, let us place these three concepts together: language, communication, and development, and see the problematic or the issues that can emerge from them. Let me here quote an extract from an article by Sujata Sosali, who is a professor in the University of Iowa in the United States, a well-known academic for her research and statements in the field of communication. I quote, "A great deal of scholarly inquiry has addressed the way in which development would enable worldwide democratic communication. Conversely, many modern communication media were in themselves considered to be indicators of development. Communication and development have been viewed as closely intertwined phenomenon where one is believed to guarantee the other." End of quote. Royal de Coll says that where people have options to change their ways of life, communication becomes important in informing, persuading, listening, data gathering, educating, training, and managing change. The change is a vital term in this context. In fact, we can explore the constructed nature of communication and development from a discourse perspective that encompasses communication as both cause and effect of development. Here, communication and development is treated as a discourse that dominated the global space for any decades. End of quote. At this point, let me bring to your knowledge some of the observations made after a study done by a team of researchers, of which I happen to be an observer personally, and the study was done with the support of the UNESCO few decades ago. The target group of this study had been some communities who were francophone in the Central African region. This study, of which the title had been Language for the Service of Development, had the following objectives: to support research and training in the perspective of developing the vocabulary in the French language and also in other languages of communities undergoing development. Another objective is describe and preserving linguistic diversity, and also to promote mother tongue, establishing mutual understanding and promoting translation. Then there were several other projects for developing methodologies related to the objectives mentioned above, that is developing the corpuses, database, bibliography, thesaurus, etc. During this study, several issues were emerged. Among these issues, one is the issue of lexicon relevant to development. A citizen of any country must have the right to think and understand reality in his or her language. This implies that the specific language be harmonized and its lexicons may be appropriately enriched and be widely disseminated for purpose of teaching and a better professionalization of modern jobs. Mother tongue is often reserved for family, domestic or informal use, at most used for the functional literacy. while international and widely spoken languages were considered dedicated to professional use. These were perceived as only for social enhancement, which leads to a situation of diagnosis. Thus, it was important to be aware of intralinguistic diversity among the languages in this situation, which requires to develop tools to manage it. Excuse me. Develop thematic lexicons which cover transnational languages in the perspective of at least mutual understanding. Ensure also a wide dissemination of these glossaries in standardized formats so that they were known and used by entities involved in dissemination of knowledge matters. The dissemination of development matters. Ensure the emergence of lexicography and the original terminographies based on rigorous methodologies and close observations of usage by breaking away from the habit of compilation. Work in partnership with development entities such as schools, press, etc., by making them aware of the link between language and development. Another issue was the description of linguistic diversity. Linguistic diversity is one of the attributes of our plural humanity. Our mother tongue conditions our worldview and our cultural world. As we gradually remove the barriers of mobility of people, the mobility of ideas, progress has made us aware of the diversity of ways of being a man and expression, either in his own language or language of the other. And in a world now known to be global, one of the scalable risks of development is that it reduces the possible choices enjoyed by the humanity by the slow but definite erosion of diversity in the manner of living, in the manner of expressing, and in the manner of thinking. Describing systematically inter or intralinguistic diversity is therefore a way of preserving it. This description can be done from the point of view of sociolinguistic or linguistic. The sociolinguistic approach can observe and analyze qualitatively relevant situations by asking questions related to representation on language, questions related to norms, standards, on diverse practices and establishment of linguistic identity, questions related to attitudes of groups and communities. Quantitatively, the same approach can describe language practices such as vehicularization, urbanization, number of speakers in different languages, language practices, etc. Internal evolution of languages or their evolution in the context of language usage. The sociolinguistic approach may also be interested in the position of languages and also in the dynamic or geolinguistic or geopolitical situations. Further, it may be interested also in the social behavior and social practices or position of the nation state in this domain. It should also identify ways and means to manage situations, give more thoughts to development-oriented research, research training, university reforms, curriculum revisions, training and education systems, etc. Whereas the linguistic approach could encourage scientific study of diachronic variations. For this purpose, it was necessary to ensure that this study touches all aspects of linguistic descriptions like phonetics, phonology, morphology, syntax, semantics, lexicography, lexicology, pragmatics, etc. Ensure that the study is done internally but also externally, considering relationship between language and society, relationship between languages in contact, consideration of epilinguistic speech, which carries essential data on the attitude of the speaker towards his or her words, towards his or her language. In this context, it was necessary to increase the written and oral resources. Oral corpuses was to be diversified and properly edited. It should also encourage and develop shared expertise in the field of description of the changes or the variations. Finally, it was important to disseminate the results scientifically, validated with development agents through the media. Another issue had been the valorization of the mother tongue, mutual understanding, translation, and interpretation. We live in a multilingual world, a reality that cannot be denied and also which is irreversible. Taking into account the multitude of languages in many countries, mutual understanding appears to be an utopia. In the history of people and nations, monolingualism is often the result of a hegemonic practice, rarely a natural phenomenon. Yet each language, whatever their status, is one facet of our humanity, and as such, it is a claim to universality. To avoid the systematic use of lingua franca overall, deprived of nuances and precisions, it should promote the production of free thought contained in each language. In order to preserve linguistic diversity and access to plural information, it is helpful to enhance mutual understanding by bilingual education and to build bridges between cultural studies, language teaching, and translation. In a parallel movement, translation and interpretation were always tools at the service of linguistic diversity, but also the vectors of the flow of ideas, dissemination of knowledge, and transfer of knowledge. By neological activity, it entails translations, moreover, a privileged instrument for mutual enrichment of languages and cultures. It is important to train translators and interpreters to accompany the movement initiated within certain organizations and various major socio-economic groups, both for efficiency that preserving the diversity of languages and cultures. It is also the applied linguistic research which develops the tools necessary for the practice of translation and interpretation, with constant concern for the preservation of content and meaning. Let me conclude with a quote by Nelson Mandela, who said, "If you talk to a man in a language he understands, that goes to his head. But if you talk to him in his own language, that goes to his heart." Thank you very much.